describe that in the book that you actually partook in that form of cannibalism a little bit. Could you talk about
Yeah,
that as well? Because that's fascinating. Is that still going on, this trend, by the way?
yeah, and it's not widespread, and it's basically a form of alternative medicine. So you might find it in practitioners of alternative medicine, mostly in the United States. It's not found very many other places. Started out as a sort of late hippie thing, late '70s. Not as not more as a sort of communal. We're talking about the placenta. Let's clear that up here, which is you know um, mostly fetal tissue, partially maternal tissue, and it's really sort of the interface between the developing fetus and the mother. So the blood goes through and is filtered by the mother's blood. It goes through and is filtered by the placenta before it enters the baby. So you can think of it as that, but it is delivered with after this is afterbirth. This is what we're talking about here. And some women believe that that consuming the placenta after giving birth restores the hormones that are lost when the placenta is delivered. And so things like curing the baby blues, the depression that sometimes follows giving birth, this was the reasoning behind consuming your placenta, and it is not very widespread, and and so um, I had pretty much finished writing the book, and I recently retired, took an early retirement from teaching, but I was probably about 10 days away from starting a semester, and I had come across this story about placentophagy, and made a couple of phone calls to talk to researchers who might know about it, and one of them hooked me up with a woman who lived in outside of Dallas, Texas, who did this for a living. She went to the hospital, she collected the placenta, and then she would bring it home, and she would do things like dry it out and make powder out of it, or if you wanted to have it fresh, she would make a Slurpee out of it, and you can drink it. And so there were all sorts of ways that she would prepare this thing. So I'm talking to her on the phone for not like a half an hour, and she's telling me about her clients and how interesting this was. And and at the end of the conversation, she goes, "Well, it's too bad you can't come down here because you could eat my placenta." And I went, "What?" And she said, "Yeah, I just gave birth, a month or so ago, and I've got one in the freezer. My husband is a chef. He can prepare it for you any way you want it. You can make a taco out of it. You can have it asabuco style, however you want it. You could have it." I'm just like amazed. I'm sitting there thinking to myself, did this woman just invite me down to Dallas, Texas, which I've never been there before, to eat her placenta? And then I started to think, if it's 10 years from now, I've written a book about cannibalism and talked about this, and I had the chance to go down there and do this, and I didn't do it, then I'd be kicking myself in the behind. I know it. So I told my wife about it, and she was like, "Yeah, go." So 10 minutes later, I had bought tickets, flew down there through a hellacious storm that had knocked out the power to this area, and I'm in the hotel that night, and I go out to eat, and there's a really, really weird vibe, um, and it had to do with the fact that there was first instances of some serious illness that had come in from Africa, and people were really freaked out about it. So everybody's like all wired and on edge. I get a phone call from her, and she says, "Well, our babysitter canceled on us. We were going to drop off our little angels, but I got to tell you that my 10 homeschooled kids will be there when you come over tomorrow morning." So the next day, I head over to her house, and I make a stop at the liquor store. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, I got to bring a bottle of wine for this. So I'm thinking, all right, well, I want to find the most Texas-looking salesperson that I can find down there, which was not difficult. This is a lady with cowboy boots, the whole 9 yards. And I said, "Well, I've got a really interesting pairing for you today." And I told her what I was, and she literally ran away from me. So I, so I grabbed a bottle of Italian red, and I made my way over to her house, and got greeted by this wave of 10 kids who were all over me. They'd never seen an iPhone before. They, this is back a couple of years ago. They're, oh, can I hold your iPhone? And are you going to eat my mother's placenta? And, so, so it turned out to be this incredible experience. I interviewed her, and she pretty much admitted that she was dealing with was the placebo effect. She was very intelligent, and recognized that there were no real scientific papers out there that showed that consuming your placenta did very much of anything, especially if you cooked it. And you're thinking in terms of if you're going to replenish your hormones by eating a placenta, hormones are a type of protein, and if you take this and cook it, you now have denatured this protein.
Okay.
You do this with albumin in an egg. It's not the same thing when you cook it as it is in the egg, and she recognized that. But as she did say, and we've got to agree with it, is that the placebo effect is very strong. So if you think you're getting a benefit out of it, many times you do. So after the interview was over, her husband comes out, and he's got like a complete chef's uniform on. He's got the hat, the whole thing, and he steams up these vegetables, and first cooks some vegetables, and sweats them, and he says, "These vegetables are organic." And I'm like, I just remember telling him, "Thank God, because there's no chance that I'm eating your wife's placenta unless the vegetables are organic." So so he cooks this up. And finally in the freezer, they defrost these little bits of her placenta. It really wasn't that much. It was, maybe a couple of tablespoons.
What does
And he
that look
dumps it.
like, by the way?
It looks like it looks like organ meat. If you've ever like chopped up a kidney
Like liver or?
yeah, kind of like that.
Okay.
So he cooks it up, and I ate it, and it was delicious. It was, you added the wine to it, and it's just like anything else. It's how you cook it and what part of the body, whether it's a cow or a human or or a pig or a chicken. It depends on what part you're eating and what it tastes like. And this tasted to me like you know, it was a bit unique. And back when I was in college, all of us we were all broke, and on Sundays we used to watch football, and we used to get chicken gizzards and fry them up with with garlic and olive oil, and the taste reminded me of a chicken gizzard, but
Hmm.
it had the consistency. It was very tender. It had the consistency of veal, so that's what it tasted like. And so yeah, if I'd have written, I've written 3 novels, and if you'd have let me just make this entire trip up, it could not have been any weirder than it was. And she was wonderful, and her kids were wonderful, and her husband was really cool, and they were very poor, and I just remember for a number of Christmases after that, just sending them boxes of gifts and things like that for her kids, and I went in there all snarky, thinking, 10 kids is going to be like the old woman who lived in the shoe. And I just felt like such an idiot, because she was such a nice person, and so kind, and treated me so well. And, it was a very memorable experience. I would never do it again.
Did
People
you
have
feel
asked.
different after eating the
No,
placenta? Were you
no,
like,
no.
now I'm officially a cannibal?
No, never thought that at all. I just thought, I was doing it for the sake of the book. I
Right.
don't, I don't, this is not something that I think makes any sense, especially since I could have, if she'd
Yeah.
have been ill, I might have gotten sick. And so that was a chance that I took. And so I do tell people that I don't believe that there are any benefits whatsoever, but there are definitely some possible problems that might develop from doing that. So it's not something that I recommend.
All right.